Kelly York. I was born on November 22nd, 1973. I was born in Hawaii. My family is very close. I have two sisters and my parents, of course, and we all enjoy being together for holidays and special events, and in the summer we barbecue. My dad, in a way, is my hero. It always seems that you can go to Dad for advice, and if you don't take his advice, he ends up being right anyways. My mom is the humorous side of the family. She's very funny. She's always doing something funny, and she's one of the most caring people that I know. She's just great. If we were sick, you know, she'd be like the mother hen, you know, hovering around us all day, or, you know, she stood by us. They both do in our decisions, whether they be right or wrong. You know, they're great. They're always there for you. I was out of high school. I had just started a job as a community services officer with the Woodland Police Department. I saw an ad in the paper for the Woodland Police Department, and I, you know, decided, well, hey, this sounds, you know, pretty interesting. So I went and took the test and went through a lot to get the job. You have to go through a background check and polygraph and all that, and I got the job, and it was really exciting. And I'd go to work. I worked 40 hours a week. I was horseback riding a lot, almost every day before my accident. Horses were a big part of my life. Living out here in the country, you need to find something to do to occupy that time. And of course, I was on the volunteer fire department, so I was going to fire calls on an on-call basis whenever we'd get called out.
On August 8th of 1995, Kelly was called to fight a grass fire not far from her home.
It was a red flag day, and we didn't know it, and I went on the first engine out of the station. We saw the smoke. There didn't appear to be, you know, too much smoke, so we thought it was going to be a fairly small fire. We hooked around and started fighting the fire, and the fire wasn't very high at all, not very high at all. We stopped. We had a little bit of a wetline semi put out. When I turned my head, I saw flames. That was all I could see were flames just, you know, over my head.
Rolling in on one of the first units to arrive at the Capay Valley fire, Kelly York, shown here beside the truck she was riding on, she was suddenly thrown into the fire.
She was a real kind person that, you know, if you needed help, she'd be there for you. She was always there. She was always helping at the air shows, and that she was always on volunteer.
Word also spread along the fire line, where it was a reminder to Kevin Weaver and Joe Baldwin that even mopping up a fire can be dangerous. But as Kelly was wheeled into the UCD Med Center, a reminder that just one moment can bring disaster. And also why the truck was apparently so close to flames. Dave Marquis, News 10.
It's a very exciting job. I mean, to be out here and putting out fire, I mean, that's something that most people don't get to do. They might tend to get tunnel vision, where they're focused on one thing, like, I got to get that fire out. And think, okay, what are my risks? You know, who is at risk by doing this, and, you know, how are we going to prevent those risks? I was burned, second and third degree burns, over 35% of my body. My legs down to probably my legs down to my shins were burned because my boots had protected my ankles. My arms, my hands, and my face were all burned, second and third degree burn. My right hand, my hands were burned very, very badly because I didn't have any gloves on. And had I been wearing gloves, I probably would still have use of my right hand today. There's a lot that goes into the treatment. You have to go through bandage changes. In the beginning, I went through bandage changes 4 times a day. They're some of the most painful things that anybody will ever go through. They have a cream called sulfidine that they will rub on your wounds to keep the infection down, and it burns and it hurts, and you have to go through physical and occupational therapy. Physical therapy, there'll be days when I just absolutely didn't want to get out of bed. Every part of my body was in pain, and there would be somebody telling you, you have to get up, you have to do this, you have to exercise, you have to walk, because literally I had to learn how to walk all over again.
Kelly's doctor at UC Davis Medical Center spoke to us about Kelly's initial treatment.
So immediately what was unique about Kelly was here I had a firefighter who had fairly severe burns. It involved her face and hands, which unfortunately is going to be something that she will have to look at for the rest of her life. We knew she had bad inhalation injury and she needed to be intubated on the ventilator. Needed to have that done immediately so that she wouldn't die of a respiratory airway obstruction. And so it was quite an emotional scene to put everything together to save this very, very lovely young woman that we recognize was a young woman. That's also more unusual. We have firefighters we've had before, mostly have been males, but we had a young woman who was obviously critically burned that we had to do a lot of things to save her life and to try to limit her disfigurement and to give her the best possible outcome.
The loneliest moments would be in the morning. I would be by myself. It would be like maybe 7:30 or 8 o'clock. The nurses would be taking care of another patient, and it was really lonely watching the sun come up and just being alone and not having anyone there to share that morning with. A couple of funny things that happened. My dad was truly my hero through this whole thing. I had to have my head shaved. I used to have really long hair, and it was really painful when you're burned on your head and they want to shave all that hair off. It's very, very painful. And my dad made a deal with me. He said that if I would shave my head, he would shave his head. And he had shoulder-length hair for as long as I can remember. And so he did it. The nurses took him into the shower room and they just shaved him bald. And it was the funniest. I almost fell out of my wheelchair. I was laughing so hard. But yeah, that was great.
Kelly's parents, Mike and Judy York, remember the day they found out about Kelly's tragedy.
Well, I was in the computer room. Kelly was playing a game on the computer, and when they heard the fire call, she and Mike went out, and I went to sit at the computer to finish the game that she had been playing, and that's when someone came to the door and told me what had happened.
They came to the door?
They came to the door.
Who was it?
It was one of the firemen. He'd been up at the scene, and he said, "I have some bad news for you. Sit down." And he said, "It's not good news," and then he told me.
We took the grass rig, went on down through a gate, and went all the way up on top of the hill, actually on the backside to catch the flame from going further into Winters, or into the very S area. Me and another guy were out on the hose, and when we got back to the truck, we seen life flight coming over, and we knew somebody had been burnt.
Kelly's dad, Mike, was fighting that same wildland fire that Kelly was burned on. And although it's almost a year since the accident, Mike finds it difficult to recount the tragic memories of how he became aware that the burn victim was his own daughter.
I knew she was burned, and in my mind I was thinking, well, okay, she's been burned. It can't be that bad. We'll be able to, they'll bandage her up and we'll bring her home tonight. And little did I know she'd be there for 6 weeks. And it was real hard. Yeah. It was hard, and for a while she was in very critical condition. We thought we might even lose her.
In Kelly's case, she had a ventilator, was helping be breathed with a ventilator machine. She had fluids being given to her to help maintain her blood pressure. At some point she got antibiotics. There are a myriad of treatments being done and all coordinated together to get the patient all better. Then starts the exercise program. So the patient will have, in a case such as Kelly's, about 5 days a week, they'll have a formal appointment with an occupational therapist to help them move into positions that are painful and that they can't get there by themselves. So that in Kelly's case, if we didn't do anything for Kelly's hands, Kelly would have ended up with paws that look like this. And she wouldn't be able to grab anything. She wouldn't be able to pick up a pencil. She wouldn't be able to feed herself. What we try to do is, this is a position where the patient will go into because it's comfortable. It's the way your hand will draw up because you don't want to move it because it hurts you. So what happens is, of course, you have to force them into a position that isn't comfortable. And you have to stretch the skin that doesn't want to stretch so that all of the joints have to come down into this kind of position, and you have to get wrist motion back and elbow motion back. And in Kelly's case, burns up to the level of her t-shirt, so up to her level of her elbows. But this isn't comfortable, but at least if your hands go like this and you get stuck that way, you can scoop up things and pick them up, so that we have to get patients into positions that aren't comfortable. Now, we don't stop there. You get into this position, then you got to work into getting curled down into a fist with the thumb too, because if you can't get your thumb in, you can't pick up things. You can't pick up money if you don't have a pincher grip on your thumb. You have to keep working on stretching because the skin is very, very stiff. And so every day, it's hours of stretching exercises. Then, having been in the hospital for most of a month, you lose a lot of strength. So in Kelly's case, a program like starting to walk, I wouldn't be surprised if she could do half a block at the first day she got home.
During Kelly's hospital stay, friends and family wrote notes in Kelly's journal during visits.
Sandy, your nurse, just came out and you're making excellent progress. They've cut your morphine back some more too. He says being in the burn unit is like being in a prisoner of war camp. They wake you every 2 hours and torture you. Sandy also says, when in doubt, knock them out. Aunt Jeannie called. She says she loves you. We went in to see you around 11:30. You are looking good, but we are still having trouble with communication. You are waving your arms and moving your lips, but we don't understand. Dad fed you water and ice chips, and we heard you say, thanks, Dad. I think he almost started to cry.
The following spring, Kelly revisited the accident scene and describes what happened.
We were looking for some way to get in, and there was a gate down over here, and we saw the house, and we saw the fire over here, and it was basically moving towards the east, towards the house. And I think our immediate, we were both thinking that, you know, that house is probably in danger. The engineer was in the truck. We were using a 1-inch hard line, and the fire wasn't very high at all, not very high at all. We were fighting it from the fuel side. This over here was all burn, and so we started going down, and we were having trouble holding the line. So we had to keep backing up to put out little flare-ups that came up. When I came in through that gate, I should have realized that, yeah, there's gravel over there. That house probably wasn't in any danger. We should have anchored that fire maybe to the road or to the engine, just so that the flames couldn't come around the back of the engine and basically what happened to me, injure somebody.
The incident can be explained with this aerial photo. When Kelly's engine arrived at the scene, they approached the left flank of the fire some distance above the road. The wet line Kelly started was not anchored to a safe point like the road. Fire was able to creep by the unanchored line where strong north winds then drove a head fire toward Kelly's engine before they could drive into the burn. A demonstration of the accident was reenacted on a smaller scale at the CDF Academy in Ione, California. Terrain and winds were duplicated to show how an unanchored line can leave room for disaster. Notice the unburned line ahead of Kelly's engine. Kelly continues to describe some of the factors leading up to her accident to CDF Division Chief Scott Drew.
There's so many things that I know now that if I'd have done just one of those things different, that maybe we could have avoided this whole thing. As far as the hose and the nozzle, a better alternative would have been to use a bigger nozzle. We used a 24 GPM nozzle. Maybe a 60 would have been better. And I didn't see any other engines at, the time. I knew there were people up on the hill, but I thought, we were going to be the only ones down here to put out this stretch of fire. So I took my coat off, thinking, I'll be a little bit cooler. Won't be so miserable out here. Had I worn all my gear, had I kept the coat on, I probably would have still been burned, but not as severely as I was. And I just had shorts and a cotton t-shirt on underneath my gear, so maybe if I'd have had long pants on, again, I might have still been burned, but maybe just first-degree burn, not the deep thirds that I was.
Kelly's personal protective equipment was analyzed in a laboratory with results determining that she was subjected to 800 degrees of heat for approximately 10 seconds.
I thought that this was an innocent fire, didn't look like anything really major. I still had my grass pants on, so I thought, we'll be okay. Well, I wish that we would have had better communication, the engineer and myself. If we'd have had eye contact throughout the whole incident, if he'd have known where I was, if I'd have known what he was going to do, yeah, that would have changed a lot of it right there.
By recounting her tragic ordeal, Kelly York has raised some key firefighting safety rules that must be noted. The personal protective equipment is your last line of defense in a situation like this. Always wear your safety gear and be familiar with local weather conditions. Before committing to action, size up the fire and the total situation, including safety zones and escape routes. Be certain your wet line has a safe anchor point so you retain control at all times. Use the proper nozzle for the type of fire you're fighting. And finally, remain in communication with crew members, your supervisor, and adjoining forces.
Things happen so fast. You need to be prepared for anything. And I know the veterans have a lot of experience, but when things go wrong, it happens in an instant. And you don't have time, that's basically it, you don't have time to react. You don't have time to do anything. Follow through with your orders. Be very clear with your orders, as tell your firefighters you needed to have a hose in your hand. If you see your firefighters not wearing their gloves, tell them to put them on. And always know where your people are. Always have eye contact and good communication with them. Life for burn victims. When I think about my life before I was burned, I was very independent. I could go to work every day. I could go out and do fun things with my friends, ride my horses. It's a totally different world, and it's just the hardest part is getting used to the fact that you have a new life now. You can't go back to the way things were, and it's just something that you have to get used to.
Kelly's always going to be a burn survivor. She's always going to be presenting the world with some scars that will tell people something happened to her. Being a burn victim versus a burn survivor is kind of the patient's attitude about it. And Kelly's on her way to having the attitude that will make her a burn survivor.
I guess you can get through anything if you try hard enough. You can't just fall down and die. You just have to find the strength somewhere to get through it. And being that we're a strong family and close, I think that helped.